Continuing talking about carburetor jetting, let's get into the needle and the main jet, or wide open throttle jetting. People mistakenly still believe the old Mikuni chart that says that the wide open throttle jetting is completely controlled by the main jet. It is not. The needle, as long as it still is inside the needle jet, is going to be a flow restriction. This is a nice graph I made that hopefully can convey to someone how the two combine together to create somewhat of a curved responsive fuel flow area as the throttle is opened. Since the vertical on this graph is the flow area and the horizontal is the amount that the slide is open, you can see that the main jet is static. It maintains a certain flow area. Nothing interrupts that. Okay? But the needle, from when the beginning of the taper clears the top of the needle jet and you pull it up and up and up as you open the throttle, the area there becomes more and more. Okay? This is the increased area of a 2.9 degree needle. This is the same of a 2 degree needle, and this is the same of a 1.5 degree needle. The steeper the taper on the needle, the faster the change. Okay, so what we want to understand now is how the main jet and the needle combine. And these graphs right here, these three correspond to these three needles. And you can see that they're all curved. If there's going to be a straight line, it would be something like, what do the charts say, that the needle works up to 3/4? It'd be something like this, going right up to 3/4 and then just flat with the main jet, which is not what happens. Thank you, Mikuni, for treating us all like stupid morons. Although I love Mikuni, it's a great carb. So, as you can see, the steeper the needle taper angle is, the more it curves. Okay, so that increase in the mid-range here is what is affecting your mid-range jetting. Okay, that's that, and as well as the diameter of the needle jet and the height of the needle shroud controls a lot of the mid-throttle jetting, as well as the main jet, of course. So, yeah, the needle shroud. This picture shows that the needle shroud is the half circle that's raised above the base of the venturi. It catches a lot of the vacuum wave, the suction wave, as well as by being an obstruction there, it creates more vacuum around it. So it's actually pretty effective at affecting the amount of fuel flow right there. This chart results from my measurements of the effects of the different heights of that. Yes, call me Dr. Frankenstein. I cut my Mikuni's needle shroud down and down to be able to take these measurements. So you can see as the height increased from 0, that means it's cut all the way down to the venturi at 4.2 millimeters. It had double the suction that it had at 0. Who would have thought that such a small height would have such a large effect? But it does. But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Maybe we should be talking about mid-throttle jetting. So, mid-throttle jetting, the needle has a lot to say about how much fuel is coming up. I don't know if you can tell in this drawing, but there's two holes at the entrance of the carburetor. One is an air passageway that goes to the needle jet, which helps to atomize the fuel as it enters into the venturi, and the other one goes to the idle jet. Yeah, we've got these two flow restrictions, the one at the needle and one at the main jet, and they basically add together. So the needle shroud, most people don't even know what it is, but it is your greatest tool for mid-throttle jetting. Cutting it down leans out the mid-range, okay? But because there's less suction there, also at wide open throttle, you have to increase the main jet. Okay, but what are you doing? Let's say this is your graph, okay, showing that it's richer mid-throttle. Race bikes like it rich mid-throttle because that helps to offset the tendency to bog when you crack the throttle open really fast. But it's terrible for street riding and trail riding when you're just cruising along, your throttle is maintaining the same position a lot of the time. For that, you would want something a little bit straighter. Okay, so affecting mid-throttle jetting is, like I said, your needle taper, your needle height, but ideally you want to set that so that the taper starts to open at 1/4 slide open. The diameter of the needle jet, the shroud height. Okay, so moving the graph over here, I'm sorry for not being fully prepared for this video. These are the main factors out here: the needle taper and the shroud height. Secondary is the needle clip, which, like I said, ideally you want that to be set that affects more like 1/4 throttle open when that needle taper starts to engage or starts to clear the needle jet. Needle jet diameter, again, that's a very low throttle open setting that you want that to be set for. Of course, on the PWKs, you can't change that. You can on the Mikunis. And the main jet, of course, you set the main jet for wide open throttle after you get the needle set. So that's why we jump back to mid-throttle right here. It's the sequence is always idle, low throttle, mid-throttle, and wide open throttle. That's the only correct sequence. And then sometimes after you make that final adjustment on the main jet, you have to skip back to mid-throttle and maybe make another adjustment there, then maybe make another adjustment there, because the two affect each other, okay? And yeah, so it does complicate things, but there's no substitute for perfection. And if you have not ridden a bike without perfect jetting, you don't know what you're missing. Fantastic to have the bike do what you want it to do. Like when a bike is too rich down here, it does not want you to slowly open the throttle, which is what you tend to do on the trail or on the street, because it'll be sputtering in this area right here. It wants you to quickly open the throttle. But maybe you don't want to jump up in speed. So having the low throttle set right, have the mid throttle set right, it's pure pleasure. I love it. It just, it's juice. It's great. Yeah, so you can adjust the mid throttle with the needle taper and the shroud height. Let's look at my web page about the needles. Yeah, so this is my page about the needles, and it's got a section for the Mikuni VM and TM, Mikuni TMS and TMX, all the Keyhine carbs, and all the Del Orto carbs. This tells what they're typically equipped with. This is the needles for this series of carbs, the PHVA and the PHBN, from 12 millimeter to 17.5 millimeter. And this information that I provide is nowhere else on the internet. I sat down and I calculated each one of these needles, what those angles are, what the taper angles are. And Del Orto engineers are on drugs. I'm sorry. They go way too low and they go way too high. I would never, ever use a needle that has more than a 3-degree taper. But that's the way it is in the motorcycle world. So yeah, you got all these needles, and I figured out the degree taper for each one of them. On the Mikuni, there's more needles than you could possibly imagine. But there's only a certain number of them that are available. This right here lists the different sources where you can buy the needles. This is for a certain size of carbs. There's another size carbs, and it just goes up. Then this goes from the TM, the needle jets, the needle jet inner hole diameter, which, like I said, affects the low throttle jetting. Different needles available. So, of course, there's different ways to test for the right jetting. Wide open throttle is easy. You either test acceleration or you test uphill, or going through a high load situation like going through sand. You just try different jets. You have some kind of measurement of what the engine RPM is or what the speed is, and you wind up with maybe 2 or 3 jets that are right there at the best zone of what you can possibly imagine. And of course, what are you going to choose? You're going to choose the richer, or are you going to choose the leaner? I would go richer if I was if I had what do they call that, whiskey throttle, where you're always gunning it, or you're racing. I would go leaner if I was taking it easy on the street. But it's a little bit more complicated than that for needle jets. Okay. When I test, I slowly open the throttle as I'm riding. Hopefully, I've got this zone already correct because of the right diameter of needle jet. You got so many overlaps. Okay. This is probably why Mikuni oversimplified their chart. So you've got the needle shroud that affects from very low open throttle opening to wide open throttle. Okay. And then you've got the needle jet diameter, which is also affects that same range, but it's most important right here. And then you've got the needle taper, which also affects all the way up here, but it's most important right here. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I slowly open the throttle. I listen to it. Okay, too lean, nice, even exhaust note. Too rich, it sputters. Okay, there's an unevenness about it. Okay, and it also sounds, should I say, denser, like a heavier sound. Okay, you just get this by experience. So I listen to it. I also go uphill and I go downhill. Uphill likes rich and downhill likes lean. And the right jetting often is somewhere right in the middle of that. Okay? If you can see that it really likes you to crack the throttle open, and it really likes going uphill even though you're not wide open throttle, you're probably too rich on the mid throttle. If you're too lean, what happens? You have less power going uphill, and when you crack the throttle open from mid throttle to wide open throttle, it either will bog or it'll hesitate. Okay? When it's just right, like for street, you can crack it open without it bogging if you don't crack it open too fast. You know, don't be like lightning jack there at the wrist, okay? You can be, you know, the fastest gun in the West on a race bike, okay? Because it's plenty rich mid-throttle. What the deal is with race bikes, they're often used as trail bikes. Yeah, are you fouling plugs? You're probably too rich on mid-throttle jetting. Trail riding, you fouling plugs? Yeah, that's the main thing to go to right there. Okay, so slowly opening the throttle, testing its response, cracking the throttle open, going uphill, going downhill. Uphill likes rich, downhill likes lean. Find a happy medium for everything you're in every way you're testing it. Okay, and then whatever you decide on for right there, it's going to affect the wide open throttle jetting. So then that's the last step, is you're trying different main jets. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't live where there's hills. It's a little bit more meticulous to measure your acceleration than it is to measure your top speed going uphill, whether that be a top speed in a top gear or top speed in a middle gear. How do you measure acceleration? You have two markers along the road. Okay, you've got either a speedometer or a tachometer, which shows the RPM of the engine. You start off in the same gear each time, and you hit the first marker with the same speed or the same RPM, and then you've got a fairly rapid opening of the throttle to wide open throttle, and then you've got a stopwatch with you. Well, you're either holding it or your friend on the side of the road is taking care of that. And so you just measuring the time it takes to get from the first pole to the second pole. And the best main jets will get you there the fastest. The only exception to this is a lot of people are not too up on the subject of engine oils. And if you set the jetting just right to run crisp and strong, and then you take the engine apart and you notice there's not very much wash on the top of the piston, which is a sign of being lean, okay? And then you take the piston off and you look at the underside of it, Oh my gosh, there's lots of oil burnt there on the underside of the piston. Okay, but you got the jetting right. What the hell's going on? Yeah, this is the exception. You're using an oil that has too much Group 1 in it. Group 1 is the shitty mineral oil. There's the good mineral oil, the Group 2, and there's the bad mineral oil, Group 1. Okay? Lots of products have Group 1 oil in them, and lots of those same products lie like a MFer. They say it's fully synthetic. I can show you in their safety data sheet how it is not fully synthetic, and they will list the other oils. They will not list the synthetic, which is weird because in a lot of the oils, the synthetics are the main one. They consider that proprietary information. Okay, which one of the synthetic oils they use. Okay, but they list the mineral oils that they add. Okay, it's a fascinating subject, and it makes you wonder, why so much secrecy? It's like the oil wars that were going on in the shadows that we never knew about. Yeah, I like it. I like studying engine oils. Maybe I should plug my oil ratio calculator here. There it is. Nah, I'm not going to. I should plug my jetting calculator. Yeah, so I love this jetting calculator. It shows you what the jetting is, where it's lean, where it's rich. You can virtually change the needle height, the shroud height, the taper of the needle, all that. What do you do in real life? You buy a handful of $35 needles. What's the cost of 4 $35 needles? $140. You know what the cost of this jetting calculator is? It's like $25. It will easily save anyone $25. Easily. The only thing it will not tell you what to do, tell you what is needed, is the idle jet and the main jet. By experimentation, you have to find out those two, and then enter in the data, and it'll show you what's happening everywhere between those two extremes. And then you have to go from there. But getting the needle and the needle jet and the shroud and the cutaway right, those four all interact. That's the beauty. That's the wonder of this program. And it'll save you a lot of time, and it'll save you a lot of expense in needles, needle jets, and slides. And that's all I'm going to say about it. Well, I don't know. It saved my ass when I was jetting my Suzuki 100. When I finished that bike, oh, it was great. I loved it. Just a 100, but I loved it. Yeah, so now you understand all the different components in a carburetor, what they do, and the right way to test for them. The old Mikuni VMs, you can get those carbs jetted perfect. I mean, perfect. Just the way you want it, which is what mine is right now. When I slowly roll on the throttle, it has just the very slightest tendency to sound a little bit rich, okay? But that's the way I like it, because every once in a while, I yank that throttle open. So it's jetted just the way I want it to be. Thanks for watching.